Hello and welcome to Thoughts from the Midlife. It's been a while since I've been on. My apologies for not doing that, but I needed a new computer and I finally got one. I'm still figuring out how to use my fancy microphone and my headphones, but until I get some tech support from my daughters, or I'm going to raw dog it with the camera and microphone from the computer. So it's been some time since my last podcast, and some stuff has happened. I got kind of sick there for a while, and that threw me off. But I'm back, and it's the heart of the sports season that I am most excited about. I'm a big draftnik. I love the NFL draft, especially for the Cowboys and the NFC East, and building the roster. So that's something that I'm really interested in and focused on. And I spent a lot of time in looking at players and in looking at the end of the season, looking at the roster, and in seeing what next year's team will look like and if it'll have a chance to be competitive again. So we can start with talking about the free agency period, which was just started. The league year started on Wednesday, but of course the unofficial allowed tampering period started on Monday. So it was a flurry of moves, none of which included the Cowboys. In fact, they've yet to sign a free agent that's not one of their own. However, there is a lot of noise being made about what their roster could look like with certain additions and players talking about coming to Dallas either to genuinely come play there or to build up and talk up their own price. So we can start there. They started by signing their safety, Donovan Wilson, who was originally a sixth-round pick out of Texas A&M. But because of the way Dan Quinn runs his defense, three safeties are very important. So they have Malik Hooker locked up for at least another year. They have Javon Curse, who is also locked up for another year, who had a really good year last year. And they have Donovan Wilson. So they interchange those guys a little more like linebackers in a hybrid role. Mostly Donovan Wilson because he's a guy that's more comfortable in the box, but Curse, because he's such a big guy, also plays in the box. So signing him was really important. So that was one of the pieces right there. They also signed Leighton Vander Esch, first round pick from Boise State a few years back, a draft that I was at in Dallas, which was pretty cool. And he had a really good year last year. And the knock on this guy is not that he's not a good player; it's just that he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And so this past year, he was mostly healthy. He missed a couple of games at the end of the year, but he had a strong season. And the linebacker market has been good. There have been some linebackers signed to bigger deals, but not a lot of players signed to some big deals. There was a lot of talk early on about Bobby Wagner coming to play in Dallas. That may or may not happen. I kind of find it doubtful at this point, but there aren't a lot of big dollars flying around unless you're that kid Tremaine Johnson who signed with the Bears, and the other kid Johnson from the Eagles who also signed with the Bears. We're spending a bunch of money, but getting Van Der Esch at the cap hit that he's going to be costing is pretty good. And then the move that I think interested a lot of us the most was trading a compensatory fifth-round pick for Stephon Gilmore. Now, obviously, Stephon Gilmore is not the Stephon Gilmore of 2019, who was Defensive Player of the Year when he was with the Patriots. However, he had a top 10 rating by Pro Football Focus last year. The guy's still a really good player. Probably depends a little bit more on savvy than just on natural athletic ability, but that's still there as well. I mean, the guy's 32. I guess in football years, that's a lot older, but he's in good shape. He's been a relatively healthy guy. He had a good season with the Colts last year. We're a banged up team, did not have a good season, but adding him was really important. The Cowboys also re-signed C.J. Goodwin, the special teams guys, and they also re-signed Cooper Rush today, who was their backup quarterback. Now, in free agency, they did lose Connor McGovern, last year's mostly starting left guard, and they also lost Luke Gifford, who was a backup linebacker and a special teams ace. I think they might sting a little bit, but they have some young guys coming up that can hopefully play special teams. Now, going back to the Gilmore trade, that really helps solidify the secondary. As I mentioned, they rotate their three safeties or play them all at the same time at one point. The NFL is a very heavy passing league now. So you have Trayvon on one side, you've got Gilmore on the other, and the rookie from last year who will be a second-year player, Deron Bland, possibly playing in the slot. That's if they don't bring Jordan Lewis back, who's recovering from a Liz Frank injury in his foot. But as it stands right now, and you add in Israel Mukwamo and possibly Nahshon Wright to that, and if Kelvin Joseph, the second round pick from a couple of years ago, ever develops, it may be a decent secondary. Of course, you mix that with a really strong pass rushing unit led by Micah Parsons and Tank Lawrence, who may not be a serious pass rusher anymore, but he's a very consistent player, plays a run well, and does create pressure. You throw into the mix Dorrance Armstrong, possibly resigning Dante Fowler. But I think next year, the guy we really need to look out for is Sam Williams, the kid they drafted in the second round from Mississippi last year. He had some extremely good plays where you could just tell that athleticism was crazy. So those are the moves, and that's how they fit in with this year's roster so far. Now, the next wave of free agency is where we're in right now, and there may be a potential couple of additions there. The Cowboys have moved some money around under their cap, so that's important in order to bring additional talent onto the team. And after the Joneses, Jerry and Steven talked about adding some juice to the offense. There's a lot of speculation about Odell Beckham Jr., who is a free agent, DJ Chark, who's a free agent, a player like Mecole Hardman, who's a free agent. But intriguingly, there are other players who have seemingly stated their desire to come play in Dallas, including DeAndre Hopkins, Nuke, who's been in Dallas, and there have been videos of him saying, "Hey, Dallas, talk to me." Arizona looks like they're cleaning house, starting over. They have a young quarterback. They have a nice young set of players on defense, and they need some draft picks. And so as long as it's not for a premium pick, not a first-day pick, probably not a second-round pick, maybe a third-round pick to bring on his salary, which is a little high. And the guy is 32. Again, 32 is still a good age. I wish I was 32 again. But the guy's got great hands. And even though he missed some games last year because he was suspended for some performance-enhancing stuff, I think the guy would be a great addition to this roster. And it won't cost you a whole lot if you can negotiate it down to a non-premium pick. There's also rumors of Brandon Cooks possibly coming over from the Texans. His cap hit's a little bit higher, and he brings a lot of speed to the table. The Cowboys almost pulled a move off for him last year, but that just didn't materialize. The asking price was too high. So it's possible that as time goes on in the free agency period, some of these guys might think, well, this stuff's drying out. There may not be a lot of money. Case in point is Dalton Schultz, who hasn't signed yet. I think he's a really good player who the Cowboys have depended on. Dak's depended on him a lot. And he hasn't been signed by a team yet. So the longer time goes by, more than likely, the less likely it is that these guys will get paid the kind of contracts they thought they would get paid, which is a shame, because these guys have short careers and they have to make as much money as they can in these windows. So we'll see how that Dalton Schultz piece works out, or if it doesn't work out for the Cowboys. They have two young, good tight ends that are good pass catchers with Ferguson and Hendershot, and they have McCown as a backup, but there's a possibility they can bring in a kid in through the draft. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about was about Zeke Elliott being cut and no longer being part of the Cowboys. I think he caught a lot of unfair criticism, and a lot of it had to do because he signed a big contract and maybe didn't live up to that. However, the guy was a consummate pro. He played hurt. Everything you read and hear about him is that he's a great teammate. He's a really good guy in the community. And he gave the Cowboys everything they had. As a 2016 draft pick, he was electrifying for the first few years of his career. But there's yet another career that the Cowboys front office has wasted and not built the team all the way by not going all in, as the saying is, kind of like the Eagles went all in last year and the Rams went all in the year before. The Cowboys just haven't done that. And if they have, they haven't put the right pieces together. A lot of fingers get pointed at their quarterback. I think justly so. He deserves some criticism. But at the same time, last year they really didn't have a second receiver. They gave Amari Cooper for a fifth rounder. And the year they acquired Cooper, they had cut Des Bryant and thought they could, patchwork a wide receiving core together. And that just doesn't happen in the NFL. Players are too good. Defenses are too good, especially when you're playing teams like the Eagles twice a year, who have a great set of corners again. The Giants have a young group that's coming on. The Commanders have a really good defense on their side of the ball. So just within their division, it's tough. So going back to Zeke, that his career was wasted, same way as Romo's was, same way as DeMarcus Ware's career was, Jason Witten's career, a couple of Hall of Famers. And it's a shame that he caught so much slack from people who worry too damn much about other people's pockets. It's not like any of us are directly paying this guy. I mean, yeah, we buy, Cowboy stuff and tickets to go watch games and all of that, but these guys' bodies take a beating. He played with a partially torn posterior cruciate ligament for the last 2 seasons. And if any of you have ever experienced any of that stuff, I have. It is really painful just to walk, much less go out there and put your body through what NFL players have to go through. So I take my hat off to him. This hat right here. I take my hat off to Zeke, and I wish he could have stayed a Cowboy. But the nature of the business is exactly the way it is, and I know it's probably tough for them to let him go. Who knows what kind of impact it's going to have on the locker room? Whenever you lose such a critical piece of your chemistry, sometimes things don't shake out well, no matter how much talent you bring onto the squad. So thanks to Zeke Elliott for his career with the Cowboys, and I wish him the best. I just hope he doesn't go to the Commanders or the Eagles or the Giants and run the ball up our butt whatever we play them. So that's a bit of a recap for now. My next podcast will likely talk more about the draft. I've done a little homework there on certain players that I hope can maybe fall to the Cowboys at 26, or if the unlikely thing happens that they decide to make a move, then for the right player, it would be a good thing. I'll also have a couple of guests next week, now that I'm figuring this thing out, and start to do this more consistently. To anybody that listens to this, I really appreciate it. I appreciate if you share this video. And it's probably not for everybody because it's a lot of Cowboys talk, but there are a lot of Cowboy fans out there. And if they're interested and you would like to be part of my podcast at some point, just hit me up. Right? Thanks a lot and have a great day.